All right, let's dive into a genuine architectural puzzle from history. It's a story all about what happens when the most crucial part of a building, well, it does absolutely nothing. Okay, so picture this. At the entrance to King Solomon's legendary temple in Jerusalem, there are these two magnificent bronze pillars. I mean, they were enormous, completely covered in beautiful decorations, and they held up exactly zero weight. They supported nothing. So you have to ask, why on earth were they even there? To really get to the bottom of this, we've got to set the scene. We're talking about the absolute peak of ancient Israel's power and wealth. And these weren't just, some random columns. They were masterpieces, standing like giant sentinels right at the entrance to the most sacred spot in the whole kingdom. Now, when you're creating something this important, something that's supposed to be a symbol for generations, you can't just hire the guy down the street. No, you need a true master, the best of the best.
So King Solomon didn't mess around. He didn't just hire a local contractor. He went out and got Hiram, a bronze worker who was basically a superstar in his day, all the way from the city of Tyre. That right there tells you everything. These pillars were meant to be a massive statement to the entire world, a piece of art so important it demanded the greatest craftsman alive.
And the level of detail was just unbelievable. I mean, Hiram didn't just pour two big bronze tubes. No way. He covered them with this delicate, intricate netting, and then topped them off with blooming lilies. Just think about that for a second. The incredible strength and hardness of bronze, shaped into the soft, delicate form of a flower. It's an amazing contrast.
And get this, the details were staggering. Around the top of each pillar were 2 rows of pomegranates. We're talking 200 on each pillar, 400 in total. And this wasn't just for looks. Every single one of these details was packed with meaning.
So you can imagine, for anyone walking up to the temple, the message started before they even got to the door. They're greeted by this powerful symbol of life in God's blessing, all cast in bronze to last forever. But this just makes the mystery even deeper, right? Why go to all this trouble for something that, from a building standpoint, is completely useless?
Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of the puzzle. And to figure out the secret of these pillars, we need to take a quick step back and remember what a pillar is even for.
It's pretty simple, right? A pillar's job is to hold stuff up, to bear weight, to provide support for a roof or a beam. It's the strong part of the building that keeps everything from crashing down.
So the obvious question is, with these two massive, beautifully made pillars right at the front entrance, what on earth were they holding up?
The answer? Absolutely nothing. That's right, they were totally freestanding. They weren't connected to the roof, not to a single beam. From an engineering standpoint, they were completely and utterly useless. So, what in the world was going on?
While the answer, the whole reason they were even built, is hidden in the names King Solomon gave them. And this is where these things go from being weird architectural quirks to incredibly profound statements. Okay, so the pillar on the right was called Jachin. That means he will establish. The one on the left was Boaz, which means in him is strength. Now, on their own, those are pretty powerful words, but when you put them together, they actually form a sentence.
See, these pillars weren't holding up a roof. They were holding up an idea. Their job wasn't structural, it was declarative. Every single person who went into that temple had to walk right between these two giant bronze statements.
When you put those names together, you get this single, powerful message. It was like the core belief of the entire nation, cast forever in bronze for everyone to see. Think about it. As you walk between, he will establish, and in him is strength, you are literally passing through a sentence that says all of this incredible temple, the whole kingdom. It isn't built on the power of kings or the might of armies. No, it's built on God's strength alone. It's a powerful message about where real, lasting stability actually comes from. And there's a perfect modern analogy for this. Trying to build a life or even a country on your own strength, it's a lot like trying to build a complex piece of IKEA furniture without looking at the instructions. You might end up with something that kind of looks right, but it's guaranteed to fall apart the second you put any pressure on it. Come on, you've been there. You toss the instructions aside thinking, I got this. You trust your own genius. You put the whole thing together, you're feeling pretty proud of yourself, and then you put one heavy book on it and the whole thing just collapses. And that's when you see that little bag of crucial screws you forgot to put in.
Well, in a way, these pillars were like those leftover screws, just made gigantic and beautiful. They were a permanent, unmissable reminder. Hey, Don't forget where the real strength comes from. Don't rely on your own know-how. The stability you're really looking for, it's not something you can build yourself.
So in the end, Jachin and Boaz weren't useless at all, were they? In fact, they were doing the most important job imaginable, reminding an entire nation what its foundation was. They weren't pillars of structural support. They were pillars of faith. They weren't holding up a building, they were holding up a belief. And that kind of leaves us with a big question to think about, doesn't it? What supports the structure of your life?